Hey guys, it's Raven, the Wild Witch, and welcome. We are today going to be talking about Vivianite. One of my, actually kind of a recent discovery for me. I did not even know that this crystal existed. And then when I started learning more about it and trying to understand it, I really love it. And I have incorporated it into my practice. And it's a really great crystal. So let's dive in and talk about what you can do with Vivianite. So first of all, I'm going to show you some examples. This is kind of what it's going to look like. And you can see it's striated. It's got like little striations and it's a bladed formation. It can also happen in a fibrous way. So you can see this big hunker over here. If I can, hopefully you can see that. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Look at all those crystals in there. So let's talk about why this crystal is important and why it is that, what are some of the things that are really cool about it. So Vivianite is a type of phosphorus composite. And generally, it's going to grow on whenever you have a situation where you have any kind of organic matter that's decomposing, you're going to have this starting to grow in it. So a lot of times you're probably hearing the name associated with Vivianite of like the Necro stone or something like that. And that's because that's what they're calling it now, because it is it's found often in dead things, like in dead bodies, or if you cut open a fossil, sometimes you're going to find Vivianite on the inside. There's a lot of things because it requires the phosphorus. So in order for Vivianite to grow, it requires two things. It requires organic matter, which is going to have the phosphorus in it, and it's going to require a waterlogged environment. Right. So it's going to be when it has both of those things, it's going to, as the phosphorus starts getting saturated, as bacteria eats away over everything else, it's going to start forming these crystals. So they have found like bodies with Vivianite for teeth and bones, because that's the replacement process. If you bury a body in a nice little place, chances are you're not going to find it. But if you have like a cave where things are maybe decomposing and there's a lot of water around and all of that, you're probably going to find it. So with that being said, let's talk about what Vivianite has. Some fascinating features. The first thing is when you first find Vivianite, when you first dig it out, it is like a clear color. It is very clear. However, Vivianite is going to react with light really fast. And so what happens is, as a little photon of light comes in, it's going to hit that Vivianite and it's going to knock one of the, Vivianite has water trapped in its matrix. It's going to knock out one of the hydrogen atoms from the water. And it's going to convert that into hydrogen, hydroxide ion. And then what's going to happen is the rest of what's sitting in its matrix is going to try to account for it. So then that's what causes the iron to turn from an Fe2 plus to an Fe3 plus. And when that process happens, this is how the color starts getting darker and darker. So the more exposed to light Vivianite is, the darker it's going to become. So it comes out as clear. And then the progression is, because I wrote this down because I didn't want to forget it. So it goes from clear to green, to blue, to purple, and then purpley black is when it's finally cleared. The important thing to know about Vivianite is this crystal is not stable as it is in form. So it is very fragile. It is, in the Mo rating, it is only 1.5 to 2, which means it is a softer crystal than selenite. And you guys know how fragile selenite can be. And so it is definitely going to be something that if you have it, you want to keep it out of the sun. You want to keep it out of any light. So I keep mine in a little closed pouch until I need to use it. And then I pull it out and then right back in it goes, because I wanted to maintain that color as long as possible. Now, it does not necessarily if the color changes, the properties of it doesn't change, but the energy that you're able to extract from it will change because the wavelength that's being reflected to you is different. So if you have one that's blue, you're going to be able to extract that blue wavelength, which is going to connect you to the throat chakra. A green is going to extract you to the green wavelength, which is going to connect you to the heart. And once you reach purple or black, it's going to connect you with your third eye, and so on. So those are the things that, some of the things that are really cool about it. The other thing about it is that what I find really interesting to me is that it's a monoclinic stone, which means its internal structure is monoclinic. Boy, I have a hard time saying these big geology words because I'm not very good at it. Which inherently on the inside is, when you're looking at sacred geometry, you're looking at the cube formation, which tends to be very, very stable. But Vivianite is not stable. So to me, it's a kind of an interesting dichotomy. So I did some reading to see what other people use Vivianite for, and I'm going to tell you right now that I disagree with most of it, but I'm going to tell you anyway. People say it's open the heart chakra, invite in joy and life and positive energy and all of this other stuff. Vivianite is a crystal that grows from dead things, right? So it is a perfect crystal for you to have that connection, like in a way, that same way that you would work with a fossil, right? To connect to the life energy of this planet, or to connect with experiences of those who have come before you. So you're looking at heavy duty ancestor work, or you're also probably looking at being able to use it to do some past lives work. But I really feel because of how soft Vivianite is and how unstable it is, this work for me, what I use it the most for is when I'm helping somebody to cross over. And so if you are a death doula or you're doing any kind of work in that arena, this is going to be the crystal that you're going to probably want to use, because that time from when you go from like being alive to being dead, but you're not an ancestor yet, that is a very limited amount of time. So it's a very transitional time. So it's a transitional crystal for that. Now, if you are dealing with intense grief after the loss of a loved one, Vivianite can help you with that as well, can help you cope with that. But once again, it helps you because it's working with those ancestral energies to help you understand and know that this is a cycle of life. Life happens this way. So this is one of the reasons why Vivianite would be working with you in that way. So Vivianite, like I said before, it is unstable. So as Vivianite starts to break down, it will become called, it'll be called something called meta-Vivianite, or, and I'm going to butcher the crap out of this word, Kirchhenite. And essentially what it is, it's going to be a Vivianite that's going to become darker and darker, and then until it finally becomes this mineral. It's going to be normally a very, very, very dark green when it breaks down, but it's very brittle. And one of the things I wanted to show you that can happen with Vivianite because of how sensitive it is, this is one of the reasons why I bought this cluster, because I thought it was so cool. By the way, this is not mine. It's for sale at the shop. But I don't know if you can look at the crystals on the top. You can see that the crystals formation, they're bent. And that is something that happens naturally. So you have a rock that can bend as light is hitting it. So for me, it is a perfect transition from being alive to moving on to the next stage of your journey of existence. This is definitely one of the things that I would use Vivianite for. Let's see, what else do I want to go? Oh, here's a very cool thing about it. So the Romans used to grind down Vivianite and they turn it into paint. And so what they started finding out is they would create these beautiful blue paints. In the 14th and 15th centuries, they started looking at these Roman paintings or wall paintings or what have you. And they started noticing that, like, where they had the sky painted blue, the sky was turning green and it was darkening. And they didn't know why that was. And that's because there was ground Vivianite in that paint. And that is the decomposition of Vivianite that's happening. And it's going to gradually go through that color process. So it is an oxidation process, but it is an oxidation process that doesn't require air or water. It's water internal. It's an internal oxidation. But I think it's really cool. There's not a lot of crystals that do that. So I think that part of it is really, really cool. The other thing that you will never find is Vivianite jewelry, because it is extremely fragile. So if you drop it or if you flake, it's very brittle. It's going to break. So I wanted to show you some of the beautiful pieces we have here. So you can see the different types of formations, right? So this one almost looks like the same formation as a kyanite piece would form. And this is very, very dark green. Hopefully you can see it. And then the other type of formation that you can get is a formation like this, more tabular. And this one has a lot of green here, but if you turn it around here, it's got a lot of blue on the inside if you look at it in the right angle. But this is a nice piece of Vivianite here. Mostly you can see completely through it. You can see the blue inside of it as well. But you can also get them. I mean, Vivianite is a crystal that you can have and use, and it doesn't have to be big. You can make do with small pieces. Look at this piece here. And sorry about my nails, I need a manicure. But this one also is a nice little cluster. And for me, it's crazy because it looks like it's stable. But with my piece, for example, at home, from going in and pulling it out of the pocket, it flakes off little pieces of it. That keeps happening. Even a small piece like this is very, very cool, nice and green. This one here is a very cool formation because you can see the crystals on this side, the striations, very, very green. And then on this side, you see a little. This is how delicate it is. A little piece of Vivianite already fell just from me turning the crystal. So this is why when you have a low Mohs rating, this is what happens. And then here, I don't know if you can see. Let me see if I can get my camera to focus. On the inside, you can see a different. This has a tabular formation on this side, and it's got a more fibrous formation on this side, which I thought was a really unique and different piece. We also have little ones like this. So you can incorporate it into your practice, however it is that you want to incorporate it. So I would use this. How is the everyday person that is not a death doula, not doing that work, how would you use it? What I would do is I would use it to connect with my ancestors. That is primarily the use that I use for it. Outside, I have a piece of it on my ancestor altar that is wrapped in black cloth to keep it that way. And I do a lot of work that when you do work with it, you can even hold it through the black cloth. You don't have to actually touch it if you don't want to. If you want to preserve it and make sure that it stays, looking pretty and looking great longer, you can do that with it as well. Also, do not put it in water because that will cause a lot of problems to Vivianite. But it's important to know that Vivianite is not a stable element. So it's very much going to be, breaking down as you use it. And I think that's part of the magic and the energy that you pull out from Vivianite. It's this idea that it's a transitional stone, right? It's not stable. This is something where you're moving from one area of life to another area of life, and you're looking for something to kind of help you out and fill in the gaps for you. So that is basically another thing you could be using Vivianite for. If you have Vivianite in jewelry, I have a beautiful pendant that Autumn made that I just got. It has a big piece of Vivianite going down like this. And I keep that puppy closed until I decide to use it. I use that one for a lot of psychopomp work, generally on the new moon. I keep it closed in a piece of black cloth until it's time to use it. And then I pull it out. It's not like it's going to fall apart. It is very fragile. Pieces of it may flake off here and there. It's not like it's going to disintegrate in your hands, at least not immediately. It's a process that's going to take some time. But the color change in Vivianite can happen depending on the piece that you have. It can happen really fast. Sometimes when they dig it up, they'll find the Vivianite clear in the cave. And just from the flashlights and taking it out, they put it outside of the cave. When they go to pick up those crates, they can already see the colorless turning green just from that little bit of light exposure to it. So it depends on how often and the intensity of the light and all of that. It'll depend on how much your Vivianite is going to change colors and how that's going to work for you. So yes, you can use it to connect with the heart chakra. You can use it for healing. I saw in one website that they paired it with moldavite. I would absolutely not pair this crystal with moldavite. Moldavite is a powerhouse. It's got a big punch of energy. This is not a crystal that can handle a lot of energy because of how delicate it is and because of the fact that it is in transition. If you think about it, it's only a little bit harder than talc. You can scratch this crystal with your fingernail if you wanted to. So it is not something that I would pair up with any high vibration crystal. No tourmalines. I wouldn't pair it up with selenite. I wouldn't pair it up with, definitely not with, wouldn't pair it up with malachite, but definitely not with moldavite. And they say that brings joy into your heart, and it could, but it's the important thing that I think if you look at the physical properties of what Vivianite brings to you, you're really looking at that idea of a quick transition between stages of life, right? Something needs to have happened and you are transitioning into another state that is not your final state. And it's going to be a crystal that's going to support you in that. So I would say that if you are somebody who's just beginning your spiritual path, or if you're somebody that's changing drastically your spiritual path, a little piece of Vivianite could probably help you out with that, saying, hey, I'm in this transitional state. I'm just starting out right now. I'm not sure what's going on. I'm going to take this piece of Vivianite and I'm going to carry it with me for a while, maybe in a pocket or something like that, so that it can kind of ease that energy. It doesn't hold a lot of energy in it, simply because of the internal structure of it and then how weak that crystal is. Definitely not a protection crystal. I saw something about protecting heart chakra. This crystal can't protect itself. There's no way it's going to be able to protect your heart chakra. So it's important that when you're looking at trying to understand what the crystal does and what the energies that are included in that crystal are, that you look at what's going on in that crystal, what's going on inside the rock. How does that rock interact with the world around it? It is just like, for example, another example that would be very similar to Vivianite is aragonite, right? Aragonite is an unstable form of calcite at like room temperature, right? At higher temperatures, over 500 degrees, it's very stable. But we live in a world, most of us would not survive over 500 degrees. So if you have a piece of aragonite in your hands, that stone is slowly, very slowly turning into calcite because that high temperature is not being maintained. And so eventually it's going to go from the orthorhombic process to being a trigonal internal structure. And the amount of energy it can hold and how that energy is going to be extracted for it will change with it as well. So it's important to understand that Vivianite is in that same arena, right? It's a crystal of transition. It's very strong with the water element and very strong with the earth element. So you're looking at emotional ties and connections within material things. So this is why it makes it perfect for working through family lines, working through ancestral lineages and things like that. So I had so much fun researching this crystal for you guys today. And if you have any questions, feel free to post and reply to this video wherever it is that you are watching it. Hopefully you are, if you're watching it, I do check my YouTube channel. So if you have a question or comment, you can post it on there as well. But generally, you're going to get a faster response from me on Facebook. If you're interested in any of these beauties that I showed for you today here, just come by the shop or message us and say, hey, take pictures of which Vivianites you have, and we will send it to you. And that's all I have for you guys today for Vivianite. So thank you so much for joining me, and I hope everybody has a fantastic week. Take care. Bye-bye. Oh, I lost my mouse.